Okay, so picture this. You're craving coffee, right? Like really need a caffeine fix.
We've all been there.
You wander onto this street, and it's like coffee shop central. Every 3 feet, there's another one.
Oh, I know that feeling. Tough choices.
Right. So how do you choose? They all basically sell the same thing. Dot Coffee. What makes your favorite stand out?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's rarely just about the coffee itself, you know?
It's the vibe.
Exactly. It's the feeling you get when you walk in, how they make you feel, what the place stands for.
Their brand identity.
Nailed it.
That's what we're talking about, brand identity. That je ne sais quoi that creates that essential first impression. And that's what we're diving into today.
Love it. It's like that feeling you get when you walk into your favorite bookstore, you just know you're in the right place. Yes. Or that bookstore that smells like old books and has that cozy armchair you could curl up in all day.
Exactly. And all the things that make a brand strong make it last. You shared an amazing guide, seriously, jam-packed with info.
It's a bit of a beast, isn't it?
It is, but a good beast.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to break down the most impactful strategies and give some really memorable examples.
You got to make this practical, right?
Exactly. No one has time for information overload. So whether you're at the starting line in your business or giving your brand a little makeover, this is for you.
Love it. Let's do it.
So before we get ahead of ourselves, let's define brand identity. What are we actually talking about here? It's way more than just a cool logo or a catchy slogan.
Right. Think of it as the soul of your business made visible.
Okay, I like that.
It's everything. Your name, your visuals, your message, and what's at your company's core, your values. It's basically that feeling people get when they encounter your brand, online, in person, you name it.
So it's that gut feeling, that instant reaction.
You got it.
Okay, so then why is it so important? What's the payoff for all that work?
Simply put, a strong brand identity equals stronger results. Think about that coffee shop again. A strong brand, people remember it. They choose it over the competition.
They become regulars.
Exactly. Loyal customers. And that means more sales, more buzz, and steady growth over time.
It's the holy grail, that loyalty factor. But to even get there, you have to know who you're talking to in the first place.
We absolutely have to know your audience, no question. And we're not just talking about basic demographics here, like, oh, they're between this age and live in this zip code.
All right, it's going to be deeper than that.
Way deeper. It's about really understanding their values, what makes them tick, what keeps them up at night.
Their hopes, their dreams.
Exactly. The whole shebang. And our source material talks about this tool called Market Explorer, which is honestly super cool. It gives you all this data on your target audience. But like we said, it's not just surface stuff.
Give us the nitty-gritty.
We're talking about real, actionable insights, the kind that helps your brand deeply resonate with the right people. It's about finding your tribe, you know?
Because you can't be everything to everyone, right?
Exactly. You've got to find your niche and own it.
Yeah.
And that's what those insights help you define. They pinpoint the core values that will truly resonate with your people.
Okay, so now we're talking values. Values, values, values.
Because those values, they're like your compass guiding every single decision you make as a brand. I love how the source material just puts it out there so simply, lays it all out in this table.
So clear, right?
Makes it so obvious. And it's not enough to have them, framed on your office wall. These values have to be woven into the very fabric of your brand in everything you do.
It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk. And I'm so glad you brought up Tuum, Eschew's, and Ben & Jerry's before we started recording. Such great examples of brands that are truly living their values. And you can just feel that authenticity shining through to the customer.
Totally. They are like the poster children for how to genuinely integrate values into your brand's DNA. I mean, take Thomas Hughes and their one-for-one model. That's not just a tagline. It's woven into their business model, their marketing, even the experience you have when you walk into their stores.
It's such a powerful example of social responsibility.
Right. And it clearly resonates with their audience.
And then, of course, there's Ben & Jerry's, a company known as much for its social activism as its ice cream.
Love it.
They're not afraid to take a stand, even if it ruffles some feathers.
Which shows they're not all talk. They walk the walk.
Exactly. They understand that aligning their business with their audience's values builds trust. It builds loyalty.
100%. And speaking of building a strong foundation, the guide also dives into the importance of a SWOT analysis.
Oh, yes, the SWOT analysis. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Now, I know it might sound a little, technical.
A little bit, yeah. Like something you do in a business school class. Not something you break out while you're having a pint of Cherry Garcia.
You're totally right. It does have that ring to it, doesn't it? SWOT analysis. But honestly, it's really just a fancy way of taking stock of where you're at, like a checkup for your brand.
Thank you.
You're looking at your strengths, what's working well, what's making the magic happen. And then this is the tough part, honestly, assessing your weaknesses.
Yeah, we got him.
Truth. But it's all about identifying those areas for improvement. And then you get to look outward, think big picture. What are the opportunities out there? Like, what trends or gaps in the market can you jump on?
Ride that wave.
Exactly. And then finally, the threats. So those external factors that could throw a wrench in the works.
So it's like a strategic brainstorming session, but for your brand.
Yes, you nailed it. And one of my favorite pieces of advice from the guide is this. Be brutally honest, especially about your weaknesses.
Oof, that's hard.
It is. But you know what? That's usually where you find the greatest potential for growth. I'm reminded of when Domino's took their pizza complaints head on a few years back.
Oh yeah, they went there.
They did. Instead of trying to sweep it under the rug, they went full transparency. Launched this whole campaign acknowledging their pizza wasn't cutting it and promised to do better.
Risky move.
So risky, but it really resonated with people. That honesty, that willingness to change.
Totally. It's like they took their weakness and turned it into this opportunity to connect with their audience on a human level.
Right. And you know what? It worked. They rebuilt trust, won back customers, and honestly, I think they came out even stronger.
Proof that honesty really is the best policy.
100%. Okay, so we've talked values, we've tackled the SWOT analysis. Ready for the fun stuff?
Bring it on.
Let's talk visuals.
Okay, so we all know a picture is worth 1,000 words, but how does that actually work when you're creating a brand identity?
Great question. Your visual identity is huge because it's often that split-second first impression.
Make it count.
Exactly. We're talking logo design, color palettes, and this is interesting. Did you know that different colors evoke different emotions?
Wait, really? Like psychology of color?
Totally. For instance, green, often associated with peace, sustainability. It's why so many eco-conscious brands use it.
Makes sense.
And then there's typography. Even the fonts you choose play a role in shaping your brand perception.
Oh, for sure. Like rounded fonts feel more friendly, approachable, whereas those sharp, angular fonts feel more, I don't know, powerful, maybe even a little aggressive.
You got it. The guide even mentions how different typefaces evoke different personalities. Like, picture a tech startup. They might go with a clean, modern, sans serif font, right?
To convey innovation.
Yes, and then a luxury fashion brand. They might opt for something elegant and flowy, like a script font, to communicate that sense of sophistication and exclusivity.
It's like choosing the right outfit for a job interview. Your brand's visual identity should tell people who you are and what you're about before you even say a word.
Love that analogy. It's about aligning those visual choices with your brand personality. And speaking of personality, that brings us to another key element, finding your brand voice.
And by voice, we don't mean hiring a voice actor, right?
Now, though a good voice actor never hurts. We're talking about defining your brand's tone and style, that personality that comes through in everything you write, everything you say.
Okay, got it.
So are you playful or sophisticated? Bold or understated? Warm and fuzzy or sleek and modern?
So it's not just what you say, it's how you say it.
Exactly. And consistency here, crucial. Think about it. If you meet someone and they act totally different every time you see them, you'd be like, what's going on here?
A little shady.
Right. It's the same with your brand. Someone visits your website, scrolls through your social media, talks to customer service. They should be getting the same vibe, the same personality every time.
So how does that actually play out in the real world? Give me an example.
Let's take Nike. Their whole thing is just do it, right? Empowerment, pushing boundaries.
Iconic.
Totally.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that comes through in everything. Their ads are bold. Their social media is all about inspiration. Could you imagine Nike suddenly switching to this super formal corporate tone?
It would be so weird. Like, who are you?
Totally. It would undermine their whole brand identity. And speaking of iconic taglines, the guide also talks about BMW, the ultimate driving machine, and L'Oreal because you're worth it.
So good.
Right, a few words, but they perfectly capture what those brands are all about. And even without a tagline, that consistency in your messaging, your tone, it builds trust. It's about showing up authentically time and time again.
It's like any relationship, you build that familiarity, that trust over time. And that goes beyond just words, right? We're talking about a feeling, a unified experience across every touch point.
You're preaching the gospel. Cohesive brand experience, the guide, is spot on about this. Your website, your social media, even down to the packaging, your physical store if you have one, it should all feel like an extension of that core identity.
So it's about more than just having a nice logo or a catchy tagline.
Way more. It's about sweating the details and making sure they all align. Visuals, messaging, tone of voice, everything working together seamlessly.
And that's got to be tough, right? Especially as a company starts to grow. You have different people creating content, managing social media. How do you maintain that consistency as the team expands? Yeah, it seems like it would be so easy for things to fall apart, as a company grows.
It definitely can, and that's where having clear brand guidelines is key.
The guide mentions that, right?
Yeah.
Like it's essential. So break it down for me. What exactly are brand guidelines?
Think of them as your brand's North Star, that guiding light. It's basically a document that outlines everything, logo usage, color palettes, even down to your brand voice and tone.
So everyone's singing from the same song sheet.
Exactly. Everyone from marketing to customer service, all on the same page. It ensures consistency no matter who's creating the content.
It's like a rule book, but for your brand's personality.
Yes, but it doesn't have to be this boring corporate document.
Right.
The best ones are visually engaging, even fun to read. Think about it as a way to share your brand's story and get your team excited to tell it.
I love that. Give everyone a shared vision. But okay, let's be real. Building a brand, it's not always sunshine and roses. What are some challenges people bump into along the way?
Well, budget's a big one.
Yeah.
Especially for startups, smaller businesses.
Makes sense.
But the guide actually has some solid advice here. It stresses that you don't need a massive budget to start building a strong identity.
That's good to hear.
There are tons of free design tools and resources online. It's about being resourceful. Prioritize what's going to make the biggest impact first.
Love it. You don't need a huge marketing budget to make a statement.
Exactly. But I will say, even with a plan, maintaining that consistency, it takes work.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
100%. The guide suggests having those regular check-ins.
To see what's working.
Exactly. Are your visuals still feeling fresh? Is your brand voice consistent across all channels? Be adaptable, stay open to feedback, and tweak things as you go.
Keep evolving. So all that said, it's one thing to have those internal chats, but nothing beats getting feedback straight from your audience, right?
Truth. And the guide is all about tapping into that. Surveys, focus groups, even A/B testing to gather that gold. What's working, what's not. These are your people telling you exactly what they want.
And isn't that what you want to hear from the people you're trying to reach? You mentioned case studies earlier. Were there any from the guide that really exemplified all of this in action?
Oh, absolutely. The guide contrasts two powerhouses, Warby Parker and Thomas S. Shoes. Wildly successful, but with very distinct approaches.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So Warby Parker, they really disrupted the eyewear market with their focus on affordability and style.
Plus, their whole customer experience is amazing.
The best. And their branding really reflects that. It's clean, it's modern, it's approachable. And then you have Tom Ames, a brand that's practically synonymous with social responsibility.
Right, their one-for-one model.
Which is more than just a marketing tactic for them. It's at the core of everything they do. And it shows.
So both brands found a way to cut through the noise, stand out, by really living their values.
Exactly. They walk the walk. And that makes their message so much more impactful. It's what makes them such compelling case studies.
They crack the code. So as we wrap things up here, what's one final thought you want to leave our listeners with today?
We've covered so much ground, from the nitty-gritty of SWOT analysis to nailing that brand voice. But at the end of the day, building a brand, it's a journey. It's about always evolving and refining. So here's a question for you all out there. Based on everything we've talked about today, what's one element of your own brand identity you're most excited to refine? What do you want to level up?
Such a good question to think about. Maybe it's time for a visual refresh. Or maybe it's revisiting your core values, making sure they still resonate. Maybe it's diving deeper into what your audience really needs.
Whatever it is, take that first step.
Love it. Even small changes can make a big difference over time.
Absolutely. And the beautiful thing is, there are so many resources out there to help you.
Like that amazing guide you shared with us. For anyone listening, if you're looking for more guidance, more insights, you can find a link to the source material in our show notes.
So many golden nuggets in there.
So to sum it all up, keep experimenting, stay curious, and never be afraid to evolve. Because your brand identity, it's a reflection of you, and that has the power to leave a lasting impact. Until next time.